20 strange places. You've never heard of. Most people can name the world's largest countries without effort. A few even know the small ones. Yet scattered across the planet are nations most people never notice. Places shaped by isolation, hard choices, and histories that unfolded far from the spotlight. Nauru sits alone in the Central Pacific, a single island surrounded by open ocean. The entire country covers just 21 square kilometers. Fewer than 13,000 people live there, and no capital city exists in the usual sense. Government offices gather in one district called Yaren, and that has always been enough. For a brief period in the 20th century, Nauru was astonishingly wealthy. Thick phosphate deposits formed over centuries from seabirds nesting on the island turned it into one of the richest places on Earth per person. During the 1970s, average incomes surpassed those in the United States and Saudi Arabia. New cars arrived, overseas investments followed, and confidence grew quickly. The land absorbed the damage. Mining stripped away forests and soil, leaving sharp limestone spires across most of the island's interior. Farming collapsed. No rivers exist, and fresh water remains scarce. When the phosphate ran out, the money vanished soon after. Today, Nauru depends heavily on imports and aid from Australia, which also operates a controversial refugee processing center there. What remains is a country forced to live with the consequences of decisions made long before most of its citizens were born. Between Madagascar and Mozambique lies Comoros, a small island nation shaped by centuries of Indian Ocean trade. African, Arab, and French influences meet here, visible in language, architecture, and daily customs. Independence arrived in the 1970s, followed by years of political instability and repeated coups. One island in the chain chose to remain under French control, creating tension that never fully settled. The economy relies on vanilla, cloves, and perfume flowers, while many families survive on money sent home from abroad. Mosques, Swahili architecture, and volcanic peaks define daily life. Daily routines continue quietly, even as politics shift above them, leaving people focused on family, faith, and endurance. Off the west coast of Africa, São Tomé and Príncipe remains remote and understated. The islands were uninhabited until Portuguese explorers arrived, turning them into plantation centers built on enslaved labor. Independence came in 1975, followed by an unexpected period of calm. Rainforests, waterfalls, and volcanic ridges dominate the landscape. Rare plants and animals thrive in isolation. Conflict never returned in force. Isolation protected these islands from chaos, allowing stability to grow where history once brought suffering. Across a vast stretch of the Pacific, Kiribati spreads across 33 islands, scattered over an ocean area larger than India. The capital sits on a narrow strip of land between lagoon and sea. Rising water threatens homes, roads, and freshwater supplies. The government has already purchased land abroad as insurance for future generations. Fishing, storytelling, and community remain central to life. Many residents speak of the sea as both provider and threat, a presence that shapes every decision. Nearby, Tuvalu faces a similar struggle. Just 11,000 people live on low coral islands barely above sea level. Income comes from fishing licenses, remittances, and the country's internet domain, .tv. Leaders have become outspoken voices on climate danger, even addressing the world while standing in shallow seawater. Family ties remain strong. Here, the idea of losing a homeland is no longer abstract but discussed openly within households. In southern Africa, Eswatini stands apart as the continent's last absolute monarchy. The king holds sweeping authority over government and law. Traditional ceremonies remain central to national life, drawing admiration and criticism alike. Economic hardship and health challenges persist, yet cultural identity remains firm. Tradition carries authority that laws alone cannot replace, binding generations to a shared sense of belonging. In Southeast Asia, East Timor carries the weight of recent trauma. After centuries of colonial rule, independence was declared, lost almost immediately, and fought for again through decades of occupation marked by violence and loss. The country regained sovereignty in 2002 and rebuilt from near destruction. Oil, gas, and coffee support the economy. Faith shapes daily life. Memories of struggle remain close, passed down as reminders of how fragile independence can be. High in the Himalayas, Bhutan chose a different measure of success. Instead of focusing on wealth alone, the country tracks national well-being. Forests cover much of the land, absorbing more carbon than the nation produces. Tourism remains tightly controlled. Monasteries, festivals, and mountains define a careful pace of life. Progress arrives slowly, filtered through values that place community above speed. Between Switzerland and Austria, Liechtenstein thrives quietly. The country has no army and no airport, yet wealth flows through finance and manufacturing. A monarchy still holds real authority, supported by a stable political system. Companies outnumber citizens. Stability replaced ambition, and it works. The country proves that influence does not always depend on size or visibility. On the island of Borneo, Brunei hides immense wealth behind restraint. Oil and gas fuel the economy, and the ruling sultan controls both state and government. Strict religious law shapes daily life. A vast palace stands as a symbol of power and continuity. Wealth shields the nation from hardship, yet also narrows the space for change. In South America, Suriname defies expectations. Dutch is the official language. Dense rainforest covers most of the interior. Communities from Africa, Asia, Europe, and indigenous roots coexist without blending into one. Political instability shapes the past, yet daily life rests on balance rather than conflict. Many citizens feel tied more to heritage than to borders, shaping a culture that resists uniformity. At the entrance to the Red Sea, Djibouti occupies one of the most important shipping routes on Earth. Military bases from global powers cluster along its coast. Heat, water scarcity, and unemployment define daily life. The world relies on its position, even as its people bear the cost of that importance. High in the Pyrenees, Andorra survives under arrangements that date back centuries. Two ceremonial leaders share authority. No airport or railway exists. Tourism and finance sustain the economy. Stone villages preserve older rhythms. Its survival feels less like chance and more like a quiet agreement to remain unnoticed. Across the Pacific, Vanuatu balances volcanic danger with tradition. Earthquakes and storms test communities often. Rebuilding is part of life. Languages, rituals, and beliefs remain strong beneath modern pressure. Customs endure because they are lived daily, not preserved for display. Surrounded entirely by Italy, San Marino refuses to vanish. Founded in 301 CE, it survived while empires rose and fell around it. Rotating leadership prevents power from settling in one place. History feels continuous here, woven into everyday governance. In the Western Pacific, Palau protects most of its ocean territory. Conservation guides policy, not fashion. Visitors pledge respect upon arrival. Protection of nature is treated as responsibility, not sacrifice. The Maldives appears idyllic, yet rising seas threaten every island. Tourism fuels the economy while water slowly climbs. Each high tide brings a reminder that beauty and danger share the same shoreline. High above southern Africa, Lesotho stands entirely elevated. Mountains isolate and protect. Snow falls where few expect it. The landscape shapes identity as much as culture. The mountains influence not only the land, but the people who live among them. Scattered across the Pacific, the federated states of Micronesia link hundreds of islands through shared heritage. Each island carries its own customs and language. Stone money, sunken war relics, and ancient navigation traditions remain alive. Distance separates the islands, yet shared memory keeps them bound together. Finally, Moldova sits between east and west. Borders shifted. Empires passed through. One region broke away and froze in time. Wine, farming, and migration shape daily life. Villages preserve tradition while the future remains uncertain. Hope persists quietly, rooted in land, family, and patience. The world is not shaped only by large countries and loud voices. It is shaped by places that endure quietly, carrying memory and identity forward day after day. If these nations survive against such odds, there is far more happening beyond the usual map than most people ever notice.